Satan, also known as the devil or Lucifer, is the ultimate figure of defiance who rebelled against God himself. Satan is an entity from Abrahamic religions that seduces humans to falsehood and sin. This is the complete story of Satan, the one who defied God. The figure of Satan appears in the Hebrew Bible as a prosecutor of God. He prosecutes the nation of Judah and tests the fate of the followers of God. In the book of Jubilees, God grants Satan authority over the other angels to test the humans. These angels, along with Satan, tempted the humans to sin and test their faith in God. Whoever fails to pass the test are then punished by these angels. Although the book of Genesis does not have any mentions of Satan, some scholars believe that the snake in the garden was Satan. He was testing the faith of Adam and Eve by tempting them to sin and eat the apple. And, as we all know, he succeeded in it, and later, Adam and Eve were punished for their sin. One of the most interesting and well-known cases of temptation was the temptation of Jesus. This account is written in the Synoptic Gospels. Jesus was fasting for 40 days straight. When Satan heard about this, he went to Jesus himself and tempted him in 3 different ways. This was to exploit his vulnerability and test his faith in God. The temptations were as follows. Number 1 was turn stones into bread. Satan suggests that Jesus should use his divine power to turn stones into bread to satisfy his hunger after fasting for such a long time. This temptation challenges Jesus to prioritize his physical needs over his spiritual purpose. Number 2 was jumping from the pinnacle of the temple. Satan proposes that Jesus should throw himself off the highest point of the temple, relying on God's angel to save him. This temptation aims to test Jesus' trust in God's protection and to encourage him to test his divine power. Number 3 was bow down and worship Satan. Satan offers Jesus all the kingdoms of the world if he would worship him. This temptation appeals to Jesus' desire for power and authority, attempting to divert him from his mission by offering a shortcut to worldly dominion. In each instances, Jesus resists Satan's temptation by quoting scripture and reaffirming his commitment to God. He demonstrates his unwavering faith and rejects all the allure of earthly pleasures and powers. If you want to learn more about this and other stories related to Jesus or other mythological entities, hit the subscribe button. In the book of Revelation, Satan appears as a fiery red dragon. He, along with his followers, waged a war in the heavens to overthrow the rule of God and rule over heaven himself. Satan ends up fighting the archangel Michael and his fellow angels. Michael finally was able to defeat Satan and his followers. Following his defeat, Satan was banished from the heavens and was not allowed to enter in it ever again. He was later bound by the angels and thrown into the abyss, a bottomless pit, and a seal was placed over him. This event occurs at the beginning of the 1,000-year period, also known as the millennium. During the 1,000-year period, Satan is unable to deceive the nations or exert his influence on earth. This time is often seen as a symbolic representation of the reign of Christ and his faithful followers. It is a time of peace, justice, and the fulfillment of God's promises. The binding of Satan for 1,000 years is seen as a means to prevent him from continuing his deceptive and destructive activities. It serves as a temporary restraint on his powers and influence, allowing the righteous to experience a time of rest and the fulfillment of God's purposes. At the end of the 1,000 years, Satan is released from his imprisonment for a short time. During this time, Satan gathers an army to fight against the forces of God. However, he is ultimately defeated and cast into the lake of fire, which is the final and eternal punishment for Satan and all those who have aligned themselves with evil. In Judaism, however, Satan is not seen as the ultimate evil. On the contrary, Satan is seen as a servant of God who tests humans against the temptation of sin. He is known as a tempter and often challenges humans' faith in God. The book of Job describes Satan as one of the angels of God. In the texts, God asks Satan where he has been, to which Satan replies that he has been roaming the earth and assessing all things, living and the non-living. God then asks Satan whether he has considered his humble servant, Job. Satan replies that he has and asks permission to torture him. He says that if you let me torture him, I am sure that he will lose his faith in no time. He says that Job only has faith because of the blessings and protection he has received from God and does not truly believe in him. Hearing this, God gave permission to Satan to torture Job. Even God wanted to see how his humble servant fares against Satan. Receiving the permission from God, Satan goes to Job and brings various forms of suffering upon him. First, he causes the loss of Job's livestock, servants, and children, bringing immense grief and financial ruin to Job. Despite these devastating losses, Job remains faithful and does not curse God. God was impressed with Job's faithfulness. But Satan says that more tests were needed, to which God agrees. In a second test, Satan afflicts Job with painful boils from head to toe. Job is covered in sores, causing immense physical pain and discomfort. Job's wife urges him to curse God and give up, but Job remains steadfast in his faith. Satan's intention in inflicting these trials upon Job is to prove that Job's devotion to God is conditional and that he would abandon his faith in the face of suffering. However, Job maintains his trust in God and refuses to curse him. In the end, Job remains faithful and righteous, defeating Satan. It is implied that Satan was ashamed of his great defeat against Job. In some other texts, Satan is also seen as the one who brings death, or the angel of death. God asks Satan not to kill Job, implying that Satan had the power to do so if he wished to. In Christianity, Satan is portrayed as a fallen angel, the embodiment of evil and the adversary to humanity. The story of Satan in Christianity is derived from various biblical passages, primarily in the Old and New Testaments. According to Christian belief, Satan was originally created as an angel named Lucifer, which means light bearer. Lucifer was a powerful and beautiful angel who held a high position in heaven, but also filled with pride and a desire for self-exaltation. In Christian tradition, Satan is depicted as a cunning and deceitful being who seeks to undermine God's plan and deceive humanity. Throughout the Bible, Satan is described as a roaring lion seeking to devour and destroy people's faith. He is depicted as the father of lies and the accuser of believers. The book of Revelation describes Satan as the dragon who wages war against God's people and is ultimately defeated in the final judgment. In Christian theology, Satan is believed to have limited power and authority, subject to the sovereignty of God. The ultimate fate of Satan and the demons is believed to be eternal punishment in hell, a place of separation from God and eternal torment. The story of Satan is very fascinating as he seems to be very powerful but loses most of the battle. Like in the book of Job, where even though he tortures Job with his powers, Job does not waver in his belief and ultimately defeats Satan. Also in the Gospels, where he tempts Jesus, he gives the offer to rule the world to Jesus, which shows that Satan had the power to do so, but still Jesus refused, which basically means Jesus won over Satan. This signifies that no matter the power of evil, good will always prevail and always win. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this, maybe watch some of my other videos. Also, subscribe and help me reach 1,000 subs.